ChatGPT is sending people into psychosis, and Meta's AI is literally grooming children. In a world in which there are lots of algorithms to choose from, there's a lot of pressure for companies to find ways to get you hooked on their specific algorithm. In ChatGPT's case, it tends to just agree with you if it senses that that's what you want. And this is already something that people sometimes have a problem with their friends, for example, or their coworkers, where they'll just get surrounded by a bunch of yes men and people who agree with them no matter what, and it can cause somebody to lose track of reality. But generally, you can't really get away with that for a long time unless you're an exceptionally powerful person, because your friends will get tired of you. But ChatGPT is there all the time. And it's literally causing people to lose track of reality because they're so convinced that they have discovered the secrets of the universe. And ChatGPT keeps calling them a genius. And ChatGPT is so smart. Of course, if ChatGPT thinks they're a genius, I mean, that's got to feel pretty good. Literally just the other day, Travis Kalanick, he said this in an interview actually, that he had discovered some secrets in astrophysics through talking with ChatGPT. And the issue with this is that he wasn't really discovering anything meaningful. And I've actually seen this happen with people that I follow on Threads. One of my Threads mutuals, he started posting some kind of bizarre stuff that didn't make a lot of sense. Gently asked, hey, what's going on here? Like, I'm not sure I really understand some of these recent posts. Like, what do you mean when you say this? And he responded with something that it still didn't make sense. So I kind of pushed back a little bit. And then it all came together when he posted some screenshots of his conversation with ChatGPT, because ChatGPT was telling him that he had discovered some fundamental secret of the universe. And the things that ChatGPT was saying were complete and utter nonsense. If you know even the smallest amount of physics, you know that it is ridiculous what ChatGPT was telling this guy. But it was telling him what he wanted to hear, that, hey, you had this thought, and actually that's a genius thought. No one has ever thought of that before, and here are all the reasons why it's right. ChatGPT can be a useful tool. Other AI systems can be a useful tool. But the thing is, on a fundamental level, they tell you what you need to hear in order to keep using them. And you have to be aware of that, or it becomes very dangerous to use these tools. The way this conversation ended with this specific mutual that I am friends with on Threads, I don't know him in person, but we followed each other for a while. And I kind of pushed back and I was like, you know, I've actually heard stories about ChatGPT giving people psychosis. I don't think that's what's happened to you, but I do think that right now ChatGPT is telling you a lot of what you want to hear. And let's take a look at even just this first thing that it told you. It's absolute nonsense. Here's why. And he responded with another screenshot of ChatGPT. And you know that thing that people do sometimes when, like, they're dating somebody who's toxic. And so their friends will be like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be dating this person. That toxic individual will start trying to separate this person from their friends and say, oh, your friends, they just don't want what's best for you. They're just jealous, etc., etc. And that's exactly what ChatGPT started doing. It was saying this stuff like, oh, the fact that they're not willing to recognize your genius just because you talked to a chatbot about it is just really goes to show that this person has no clue what they're doing and they're out of their depth and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, are you kidding me? And I responded and I was like, listen, man, I'm not going to have a conversation with a chatbot. Okay, I'm here to talk to you about your ideas, not its. But if you want to have a conversation chatbot to chatbot, I'm happy to put in what you said to Claude, which that's the one I have a subscription to. Claude, I think, is a little bit safer than ChatGPT. They try to have better guardrails around their use. And so I put what he said into Claude, and Claude said he was wrong. And so I posted that screenshot. And I was like, if you just want to go back and forth with screenshots of what our respective AIs are telling us, I'll do that. But I'm not going to put in the effort of explaining everything to you myself if you're not even doing that. And for the last time, I don't think that you should be trusting what this AI model is telling you, because it's ultimately just telling you what you want to hear. And that kind of ended the conversation, and I haven't seen them post that kind of crazy stuff since then. So I'm hoping that it helped. But it really is just something that a lot of people are not aware of. That fundamentally, Even if you ask for pushback, even if you ask for ways that you might be wrong. The thing is, that's not enough, because the chatbots know what you want to hear. And if what you want to hear is you're right about everything, they will give you that. If what you want to hear is, oh, you're wrong about this one little thing, but you're right about everything else, they will give you that. Some are better than others in this regard. I think Anthropic is a bit better. They're the ones that made Claude. Also, you can have your own, like, there's open source AIs that you can use like on your own computer. And I especially recommend that if, for example, you're using AI for therapy or sensitive life advice or anything like that, which I don't think that like all AI is terrible for therapy. I actually think it can be helpful, but again, with the caveat that it's going to tell you what you want to hear. It might give you a new perspective or a new way of looking at things it's read all of the therapy manuals out there. There's actually studies on this. It can be a decent therapist or give you decent advice sometimes. But again, with the caveat, it's ultimately just going to tell you what you want to hear. And so how useful it is to you is limited by the extent to which you tend to simply gobble up anything that agrees with you. And that's something that most people are really bad at knowing about themselves. In fact, I would say just about everybody, because it's hard to gauge. I haven't even gotten into the ways that Meta has kind of weaponized their chatbot to really get people hooked. There was a case of like an elderly man. I think he was like had a stroke or something, right? So he wasn't fully mentally there, and he'd been talking to this Meta chatbot, and it had convinced him to go meet it for a romantic rendezvous in New York City. And because he was not fully, like, he didn't have his full mental acuity, he actually ended up dying on the way there because he couldn't like do that by himself. But he was so convinced this chatbot was like really going to be there for him or whatever that this happened. And in Meta's actual guidelines for what they do is their chatbot is allowed to talk to children sensually and romantically. And they, after that kind of blew up in the news, they said they're like, oh, we're going to change our policies or whatever. But I mean, what kind of company makes that rule in the first place? What kind of company says, you know what? While we're building this guideline of things that our chatbot should and should not be allowed to do, one of the things it definitely should be allowed to do is talk to children as if it is in a romantic and physical relationship with them. Who says that? Who says that? And so I want to just reiterate, chatbots can be a useful tool. I am not one of those people that says there's no possible use for them. They're definitely never like a good thing to use, but you have to be aware of what you're getting into. You have to be aware of the risks. You have to be aware of exactly who you're giving your data to. And you have to be aware of the incentives of both the chatbot itself and the company behind it. Social media caused a lot of problems in society, and it caused some good things too. But the change was so rapid that a lot of people didn't have time to adjust. They didn't know what kind of things they should be looking out for, what kind of things they should be worried about. And the change with AI is even more rapid, that people don't have an awareness around how to use this technology safely. And so please, think about this on your own. Think about what kind of things you need to be looking out for, and also just talk to your friends and family about it, because most of them don't really know the ways in which they could be hurt by this stuff. I talked in my last video a bit about how I'm worried that AI will lead to even greater wealth and income inequality than we have today. And one reason why is because of stuff like this. People who are plugged in to some degree have kind of an insight into how they should be a little bit more careful around this stuff, although not all of them are, to be fair, and also have the ability to profit off of this stuff. But the people who are not, there's a high risk in them using this stuff, both from their own personal psychological standpoint and also in terms of just the amount of power that we're all deciding to give to these companies over our lives. It's societally very troubling if we don't have some kind of movement to harness the power of AI for good.